have to say that I'm a trifle nervous standing here in front of you to speak to you about design, because I'm not a design expert, and I'm representing our final mile colleagues who are the experts in design and behavioral sciences. So, if the session makes sense, it speaks to the quality of the design and how well they've designed the content. If it doesn't, most likely it's my lack of fluency on the topic. Okay. So we've heard this theme multiple times through the day: AI, engineering, and design. And design has many connotations. Our connotation is that how do we solve the right problem through deep understanding of human behavior? And what tools, what nudges do we apply to elicit the right kinds of behaviors from people? And there are a whole range of new sciences, new learnings from behavioral economics, neuroscience, and we'll speak about that. Before we do that, I want to share something with you. It is 7 p.m. in Mumbai, India right now. And about 10 to 12 people that left home this morning to go to college or to work will not go back home this evening. They will die trespassing a railway crossing and get hit by a train. 10 lives finished. The future of 10 families altered forever. And we have data about these accidents. The data tells us most of these people are young men, aged 15 to 35. They didn't have any physical infirmities that prevented them from crossing safely. And most of these accidents take place in broad daylight. Vision was not an issue. And the question is, why? Why did you do that? Could you not see the train coming? And the answer, it appears, does not lie in traditional data. The data told us what it could, but if you really needed to understand why those individuals did what they did and how this can be prevented, we needed to go beyond that. We needed to understand and unravel human behavior. And we needed learnings from new fields: neurosciences, behavioral sciences, and that's what we did. It is this combination of data science which tells us what has happened, which can predict what can happen. But when combined with cognitive neurosciences, behavioral economics, and non-conscious design, that is when we can really work towards influencing human behavior to drive desired outcomes. And the new sciences, they tell us that a lot of our traditional understanding of human beings and human behavior is flawed. 99% of our behavior is non-conscious. Just reflect back on how many times at the elevator bank you have gone and pressed the button to call the elevator when there are 10 people ahead of you already who have done that. We don't even think about it, we just do it. There is no rationality in that. It's just non-conscious behavior. We've been taught that our decisions are rational. There's this notion of homo economicus, someone that's maximizing economic benefit, someone that's dealing with everything rationally. The reality is that we don't have the time or the tool to analyze all the data, all the information, evaluate all the options that are available to us to make a fully informed, logical decision, and so we rely on heuristics. Through evolution, through our upbringing, our mind has formed several heuristics, And we use those heuristics to arrive at the best possible outcomes for ourselves. And we know that context alters human behavior. Just think of yourself caught in a traffic jam, and we know how badly we feel about the other drivers who are honking, and we think that every other driver is bad, they're cutting us. But the same traffic jam, when we look at it from a distance, perhaps from the balcony of our room, our thoughts are different. We're thinking about, how public transportation might be a solution to this, and various other things. But the context matters for the same set of the context in which we make a decision. It matters. And so here's the question: when we went back, or when our colleagues at Final Mile, when they went back to cognitive neurosciences to understand why do they do what they do, the answer lay in evolution. It's something called the Leibowitz hypothesis. And through evolution, the human brain has not been designed to estimate the speed of large, fast-moving objects. We have seen small, fast-moving animals, deer, rabbit, that our ancestors have hunted, which we continue to hunt today, right? So we are very good at estimating their speeds. But large objects that move at high speed, that is a recent phenomenon, just 100 years old, 150 years old. The brain has evolved over millions of years. And the brain underestimates the speed of fast-moving objects by up to 40%. So when that individual is crossing that railway track, he or she thinks they have 6 seconds, they have 5 seconds, but no, the train is upon them before they know it. And that is the learning from neuroscience. So now we know why they do this. And what are we going to do to influence their behavior? How are we going to change their behavior? We could do things that have traditionally been done, such as this warning, right? Objects in the mirror are closer than they appear. But what we also know from behavioral sciences, that warning does not register. It does not alter our behavior. And so we needed a new method. And what we knew is that speed, we are able to judge speed always in reference to something. When we sit on a plane, we really can't estimate how fast that plane is going unless we're able to see it in the context of a cloud, sometimes your shadow of that plane on the cloud or another plane. And so what this team did is that we knew the places where the most number of accidents were occurring, right? And we created a reference. These sleepers, these train tracks were painted yellow, so you would paint 5 of them yellow and then leave 15 blank, and then paint another 5 and then leave another 15 blank, right? And then as the train is approaching, the mind registers those yellow slabs disappearing. And now you're able to make an assessment of the speed of the train, right? This is non-conscious design. The individual does not even know that this has been designed for them, but the communication is happening and the desired behavior is being elicited. This specific example, now the government of India has mandated that this should be replicated across all train tracks, that all points where that are prone to accident. And the cost of the solution, about 120 pounds. That's it. The cost, all that is the cost of paint the sleepers, right? So this combination of data to understand what they do, behavioral sciences to understand why they do it, right? And then the design, creating that design for impact through non-conscious design, communicating directly to the mind. This combination is being used to solve several problems, both across business and across the non-profit sector. We already saw this example of preventing accidents, road safety, rail safety. There's work that we're going to speak about from the area of AIDS prevention. 2 things such as credit line increase, financial inclusion, and such. So let me pick up this next example here of AIDS prevention in sub-Saharan Africa. Sub-Saharan Africa has about 6% of the world's population, and 50% of the AIDS instances of the world are in sub-Saharan Africa. It's a big push by several agencies such as the WHO and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to prevent AIDS in Africa. What research has shown is that voluntary male medical circumcision can reduce the risk of AIDS, acquiring AIDS by up to 60%. And the Gates Foundation they have a very ambitious agenda of ensuring that about 60% men undergo this procedure and potentially 3.4 million AIDS cases could be prevented, right? And here's what the data showed us. A lot of money spent on creating awareness, a lot of money spent on advertising the benefits and the risks. 68% of the men are aware of the benefits of VMMC. 66% indicate interest. 64% even indicate intent to do it, right? But the percentage of men that actually undergo the circumcision, just 11%, right? And how do we bridge this gap between intent and action? And very interestingly, the people that actually did this work on the ground, they said that they spoke to 9-year-old kids in Zimbabwe and Zambia, and said 9-year-old children knew the benefits of undergoing this procedure. So awareness, knowledge was not the issue, but there was still a big gap towards action. So I'm going to share with you a video, and then come back to what the team did.
In 2007, 3 large clinical studies showed a 60% reduction in the risk of female-to-male HIV infection among circumcised men in Africa. Based on this evidence, UNAIDS and WHO recommended voluntary medical male circumcision, also known as VMMC, programs in 14 countries in sub-Saharan Africa. The goal is to circumcise over 20 million men to prevent more than 3.4 million new HIV cases by 2025. But in spite of a dramatic increase of awareness around VMMC, too few men are getting the procedure. Prior research measured this lack of action, but new approaches were needed to identify how to overcome it. Previous efforts have successfully built awareness and intent, but we need to better understand the missing pieces that drive action. In short, we're faced with a complex human problem that needs a systemic human-centered approach to behavior change. Our approach set out to establish a human-centered map of the system that could identify strategic opportunities. Independently funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, conducted under the leadership of the government ministries and in support of the VMMC program partners, we focused on Zambia and Zimbabwe, 2 countries with a high prevalence of HIV and low rates of male circumcision. To understand the challenges, we created a custom methodology that borrows from successful approaches in the private sector. Our goal? To identify the beliefs and mental models that keep men from achieving circumcision, and to develop strategies to address them. Teams of local moderators were trained to conduct interviews and game scenarios in their native languages. They were given a simple, comprehensive toolkit that was used to map men's paths to VMMC. The research was implemented across 6 regions in Zambia and 7 in Zimbabwe. This method identified scenarios to explore mental models and emotions that drive behavior using a game-like approach. After interviewing 1,300 boys, men, and their influencers, we were able to identify key beliefs, motivations, mental models, and emotions that drive a man's decision-making process. The synthesized maps and game scenarios revealed visual patterns. These patterns identified common pathways to VMMC as well as barriers that limit progress. The result is a new systematic understanding grounded in the human decision-making process for VMMC. Now we have a holistic view to explain why men behave the way they do. We can change behavior by activating the right influencers and leveraging man's internal drivers. This understanding enables us to align efforts toward the elimination of dissonance that currently inhibits men from getting circumcised, resulting in behavioral changes that will decrease HIV and save lives.
So, Shrikant spoke this morning about the driving force and the restraining force in any behavioral change situation. And here's an analogy, which is the rider and the elephant. And most of our communication is often, or most of our attempts to influence behavior is often targeted at the rider. And while the elephant is really the bigger piece driving the outcome. So in this situation, if you think about the driving force, right? The driving force was the awareness of not acquiring AIDS, living longer, living healthy. But there were a whole host of restraining forces, and these restraining forces were something that was not being addressed with this. The restraining forces were things such as shame, right? During the healing process, people know that I've undergone the process. Distrust, that if I undergo the process, my partner is going to assume that I intend to be disloyal. Or fear of the pain. How painful is this process going to be? Regret, I will lose my wages when I'm not working. And uncertainty around how this is all going to pan out. And following this work that was done by Final Mind, here's what changed, right? In the past, it was all about benefit focused. The communication was about the benefit. Counterintuitively, the focus now was changed to actually transparently communicating the pain and saying how much the pain was or how little the pain was. They developed a pain scale which they could understand in their own language, right? Is the pain equal to being pricked by a thorn? Is it as much as being hit by a stick? Whatever that may be. The earlier the focus was on the partners, said no, that's absolutely the wrong focus. The focus has to shift from the partners and it has to go to friends, other people who pass on that message, right? And as an outcome of all of this, they saw a 60% increase, 22% to 35% increase in the instances of male circumcision. So those were two examples, about safety, AIDS, and I'll move to something closer to our world that we represent every day, the business world. And in the world of credit cards, one of the easiest ways to increase balances and spends is by providing an increased credit line. And companies have always thought that we give the credit line, people are going to feel happy about it, and they will increase the spend. They'll be happy and grateful about it. Unfortunately, this particular company was not seeing the kind of increases on spends once they gave the credit lines. So the question became that why is this happening and what can we do about it? And through a series of behavioral games and ethno labs, we uncovered a bunch of understanding. One is that actually not everyone feels happy about this. Some people feel a sense of pride that yes, I've earned this right to this credit limit. I've been financially disciplined, and that's why the bank has rewarded me with this extra credit limit. I feel happy and proud about it. There are others who feel a sense of fear and regret. They feel like the financial institution has just given me more rope to hang myself with, right? And what am I going to do with this money? This is just a pain that I didn't really want. So that was one, learning about the different ways in which people feel and respond to this. The second is the notion that control leads to optimism, which is that I'm not part of this process. I don't have a choice in this increase in credit limit. The bank just decided that I need to be given this credit limit, and now they've given it to me. I have no control over this process. Right. Third is the notion that as human beings, we have mental boxes and accounts for our finances. Right? Money is fungible, but we create boxes in our mind that this money is to pay rent, or this money is to pay off some high interest debt, or this money is to make a purchase. As a result of this, they did a few things differently. One, they identified the segments, right? Which segment do I belong to? Do I belong to the pride segment? Do I belong to the fear segment, right? And the communication to me was different. Second, the consumer was involved right up front in deciding, making a choice in the credit limit. So, before giving the credit limit, the consumers were asked, do you want the credit limit increase? If yes, what? I mean, do you want nothing? Zero? Do you want $2,000? Do you want $5,000? So, I'm part of the process. And that control makes me feel optimistic. It makes me feel that this is something worth having, this is something that I can do something. And number three, they gave different offers to different people, right? Because to address that, mental boxes that we have for finances. So instead of sending one big check or one big offer, they were sent three different offers. here's a piece of check, here's one check to pay off your balances. Here's another to deposit into your savings account. Or here's another one to make a high value purchase, furniture that you've been looking to make for some time. And just these small changes, there's been no difference in what the bank really did. They were still giving out the same credit limit. Just these changes in the way this was all addressed resulted in a 50% incremental line utilization. I want to take one more example over here, and I believe I'm at the end of my time. So, there are two segments of people, same in every other way. One of them claims to drive 2,400 miles more per annum. The question is why? What is happening over here? So this was an experiment that was run where an insurance company, they ran these experiments where basically you were asking people that were filling out forms for taking on new car insurance to state the number of miles that you drive. In one application, one set of applications, you sign at the top. And in another one, you sign at the bottom. Sorry, it's mixed up. Okay, so sign at the bottom is case A, sign at the top is case B. We know that the insurance that you pay is linked. Number of miles you drive is one of the indicators. One of the factors into determining your premium. The more you drive, the more premium you need to pay. And why did these people claim that they drove 2,400 miles extra? One of the ideas in behavioral sciences is that the context makes a difference, and we want to do the right thing. And when we are reminded of what the right thing to do at the right time is, we tend to do the right thing more often, right? So when the people signed at the top of the form that I am going to state accurate facts in this, I'm not going to. I acknowledge that whatever is in here is accurate. We just signed that at the top of the form. They were reminded of their duty, their obligation to do the right thing. And they're much more likely to provide the right number at the top of that form. So we take the same thinking and apply it to the world of collections. All right. So delinquency resolution. So this was again in the financial services world. We're dealing with delinquent balances, and the collection agents, they call the delinquent individuals and try to get commitments from them. One of the learnings was that small commitments are more likely to get fulfilled, right? So as opposed to seeking payment of the entire $1,000, you seek commitments in smaller amounts. Second learning is that the way people make commitments, it matters to how they fulfill them, right? So written commitments more effective than verbal commitments. Commitments made in a social setting or social commitment with a group of other people is more likely to be kept than commitments made one-on-one. So two simple changes were made over here, three simple changes, right? One is that you're not seeking the entire payment, you're seeking payment in smaller amounts, smaller commitments. Number two, the moment the individual confirms on the phone that yes, I'm willing to pay this $200, you send them a text message saying, I'm sending you a text message, can you please confirm that you'll actually make this payment? Okay? And they agree to do that. And then you say, okay, listen, can I inform my superior that you're going to make this payment, right? So based on your commitment, I'm going to inform my superior, can I get them on the phone and we agree that you're actually going to do this, okay? And this in a test control environment showed up to a 20% increase in the amount of collection. Okay. So with that, I think I'm at the end of my time. I'm going to stop. And I think this kind of hopefully gives you a good sense of what we've been speaking about the entire day, how bringing AI, engineering, and design together can truly create magic. AI, the ability to perform cognitive tasks at human performance or better, the ability to predict, use algorithms. Engineering, the ability to pipe vast amounts of data into these algorithms, make them scale, make them real time. And design, the ability to design that application with a human in mind, solve the right problem, understand what drives human behavior, and design it in such a way that the human behavior can actually be nudged and influenced in the right direction. Thank you.